Can you guys hear me? You can. I'm on. We have a competition in my group back at Microsoft to see who can push the slide titles up to the edge without getting in trouble.
You're winning.
Uh-oh. No, have you guys heard of Copilot before? By any chance? Yeah. So I want to make a distinction. I'm going to be talking about GitHub Copilot in VS Code today as opposed to the other Copilots that we have at Microsoft. This talk is every speaker's nightmare. I'm just going to preface this because I have to deal with the internet. I also have to deal with Copilot and everything kind of working and coming together. I have a few slides up front here, and then it's going to be all code. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this just kind of a little bit more open, kind of a peer coding session, if you will. So if you have any questions or want to see something, shout it out. I don't mind at all. OK, so let's just get started right away here. This is a user group that I go to where I live in Honolulu, and they have a really big tech presence there. It's pretty fun. And so I go there, and I tell them I work at Microsoft with the VS Code team, specifically with Copilot, and they're like, that's neat. But I don't quite, what does Copilot even do for me? You know, other than it's just writing somebody's code that's scraped off GitHub and blah, 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 and the conversation gets weird. And I try and say it's just a tool. And first, there's three things that I want you to focus on in this talk today. And this is the first of the three, and I'm going to get to all three in the next few minutes. The first thing is, all Copilot really does for you, or the best thing that Copilot does for you, is it shortens the Google Stack Overflow loop. And what I mean by that is if you don't know how to do something or don't know the answer to something, you go to Google or Bing or wherever you go, and you type in a query, and then you usually end up on Stack Overflow, and then you know what comes next. You just copy paste, and then you kind of take a look at the code, you tweak it to do what you need, right? That's what Copilot basically takes that whole process and shrinks it into a window on the side of the editor. You just ask a question, and you get some code back. Now, I don't know if Jason Langsdorff actually said this quote, but I like it, that the difference between senior developers and junior developers know how to find things. And really, that's the only difference. Now, if you're senior out here, you know what I mean. If you need to find an answer, you get online, and you're like, here, let me Google this for you, and you give it to somebody who asks you the question. Copilot is just a tool. That's all it is. And people have lots of opinions about it. It's a tool that helps you write code. And having said all of that, we are going to get into it right now. I have an agenda written out here, so I know what it is I'm talking about. And I'm also going to share it with you, just so you can see what it is I'm going to be doing. Let's see. We talked about this. We talked about that. We're going to start with the second thing. The second thing, if you walk out of here with nothing else, I want you to know that this is the secret sauce to Copilot, and they're called custom instructions. And before I get going on this, what I would say is, if I'm looking out here at all your beautiful European hair, and you go get your haircut styled or whatever, and you sit down, and you wouldn't just sit there and like, go ahead. You tell them what you want, and they give you what you want, and it looks good, right? So that's what we're going to do with Copilot. So what I'm going to do straight away here is I'm going to set up custom instructions, and I don't know if you know this, but you can override settings inside of VS Code. You can override them. Whoops. You can override them with a local settings.json in your .vs code directory. And so what we're going to do in here is close this window, and I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to use a snippet. And I have 4 snippets here. We're going to talk about each one of them. I'm going to share with you the code that goes into these snippets. At the very end, I have a QR code for you. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a custom instruction to Copilot. What this is going to do is for every chat request that goes out, it is going to tell Copilot what I want to have back. It's going to prepend this to every single chat request. So here, for this project, I'm using JavaScript for all my code, camel case for variable names, Pascal for class names, blah, blah, blah. These are the things that I like to have. So if I save this, now when I come over here and I open up a chat session, and I'm going to close this. No, I'm going to leave it open. And what I'm going to say is, well, I don't know, how do I do a for loop? Just to quickly show you what I'm going to get back, well, number one, I have 2 references up here that Copilot used. I can pop that open. It's using the code generation instructions. And then down below here, I get back JavaScript. Whoop-de-doo. I know that's not the biggest thing in the world, but that just shows kind of how you can short-circuit things without having to write a huge, long prompt. OK, so let's do this now. Let's go and do the second instruction that I love. Git commits. So if you're using VS Code, and I think Visual Studio does this too, you can come over here to the source control, and we'll initialize the repository. You can come over here. You can see we have the first file, our settings. I do want to commit this because I want the rest of my team to have access to all this goodness here. Up here, let's do this so you can see it. Generate commit message with Copilot. Not a lot of people know that's there. This is one of the greatest time savers that you will ever have. Trust me on this. Let's tell you what I'm going to do. Here's what I'm going to do. I am going to comment this out, and I'm going to generate this, pull it over, and so this is the message that Copilot just did for us. This is using, again, Claude Sonnet. It's pretty good. It's not bad, right? But if I come back over here and uncomment this, now redo this, it's a lot longer. And that, just doing this right here is going to save you, I don't know how much time. It saves me hours every day. And yes, I do write code every day at Microsoft, believe it or not, and code for demos, but also I have a side business that I run, and I have written all the entire stack myself, and I use Copilot for that as well. All right, so we are happy with that. We're going to commit it straight away. And let's see, go back over here and make sure we got this set up. We did a commit. We're good, right. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I am going to kick this talk into light speed mode. We are going to start jamming. What I'm going to do is I'm going to build out a little open source project that I'm going to actually keep building when I go back to Microsoft. It's going to be an API, e-commerce API. We have the new Contoso. We call it Tailwind Traders. And so I'm going to build this out, and I'm going to start it right here in front of you today. So I am going to just drop this down, and we are going to put that down there. And I am going to drag this directory in because I don't want you to watch me type all this code out or all this stuff out. This is a docs directory. Inside of here, what I have are the styles that I like to use for databases. These are code styles, if you will. JavaScript code. I have a spec for the project, at least the first iteration or first sprint. And then I have testing. So quickly, just really quickly, I'm going to go through this so you can see what I have. This is just what I like to see in the database as far as SQL goes. I'm a data person. Primary key called ID with auto increment integers. I don't like using char, varchar, and varchar, blah. I only use text, and that's a Postgres thing. If you want to know why, come up and ask me later. Timestamps in every table. So there's that. JavaScript styles. I'm going to come back to this because you're going to see this in action, and I'm going to tweak these specs as we go along, and that's the next thing I want you to know. These custom instructions are not written in stone. Tweak them as the project goes on. Maybe you want to see something different for the logic. You can have Copilot refactor your code based on the specifications that you have in your instructions. This is the big one. This is the spec for my project. Inside of this spec, I have specified all the things that I'm going to do in this first iteration. Products table, inventory, orders. I've taken some time to think this through and write it out, like we should be doing, right? Every time we build something, we have a spec that we play against. And you might be thinking, or you might be thinking right now, like, well, the spec that we have for our project is massive. I could never just pop it in here. Well, that's true, but you can also just summarize it using Copilot. You can summarize it and pop it in here. Have it out, put some markdown for you, and then you can pop it in here. I've specified the stack we're working with today. It's going to be Node, Express.js, EJS for the view engine, Tailwind, blah, blah, blah. The big one here is SQLite, and we're using SQLize for the ORM. If you don't know what SQLize is, don't worry. It's just something you're about to see. Then we have we have services in here. Services are the logic. We all know this. And what I decided to do for fun is I decided to use Gherkin, which is just a way of writing tests out, because it puts you in the frame of mind of the customer. Now, you don't have to do any of this. This is just what I like to do. I find that what this does is makes me think of interaction scenarios. So the actual content in here isn't all that important, but just know that this is there. And this is what we care about right now, because what I'm going to do is I am going to now use edits, which is a new thing that we have. And I'm going to close this up, and this is where the talk might blow up. Hopefully not. I'm going to say generate a SQL schema, and schema.SQL for SQLite. So normally, if you're going to generate a SQL schema, did I spell that right? No. If you're going to generate a SQL schema and you had a prompt that you had to write, let's see if I can, no. My Zoom powers are not so good, but here, let's pull this over. There we go. If you had a SQL schema that you wanted to have Copilot generate for you, you'd write a longer prompt. You'd put in all the things that you expect to see, what kind of tables, the names, and the data types, and all that stuff. But here, since I've front-loaded everything in the custom instructions, I should be able to have it create the file for me. Oh, wait, no. Whoops, I skipped a major step. Stop. You're probably thinking, Rob, how does that even work? You didn't do anything. Right, I gotta change this to file. Whoops. All right, so I'm gonna come in here, and then I say dot, docs, and then database, styles, .md, right? Dot, docs, yep. All right, and then I'm gonna go boom, 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 and then we're gonna do JavaScript. JavaScript styles, and then we're going to do spec. Sorry about that. So now, what's that?
Extra S in your JavaScript. It's just
Thank you very much. Go audience. 1 point, audience. 0 points, Rob. Okay, so what I've just done here, instead of having a text prompt, is I'm now pulling in all those files. So every single chat request that goes up, whether it's an edit request or a message request, is now going to use this. So I am going to, actually I'm going to kill this here, I'm going to go here, kill that there, and then my prompt should still be in there. Up arrow, generate a SQL schema for SQLite, yeah. Okay, so let's try this now. So you can see I have 3 references popped in there. Database styles, JavaScript styles, spec.md, that's getting sent up to Copilot, so it knows what we're talking about, and this is the bug that I was hoping would not happen. So here's what I'm going to do. I am going to help it out and put it into DB, and the only way around this, we have a new release coming out, and the API is evolving. So sometimes what happens is, it's like, okay, I'm going to create a new file for you, and then it asks you to name it and everything, and it gets a little confused, so sorry about that. Let's try this one more time. I have the file open, and I found that this is one way to get around this little problem. Don't blow up on me, please. And so, goody. So what should have happened there is that it should have just generated the schema file for me, but it's okay, it didn't. So now I have the SQL file open, and it's thinking. It's using my spec, and it's thinking, okay, he needs some tables. So using that spec, it is going to follow my database styles and the tables that I've specified in about 10 lines of code there, and the database spec over here, database styles over here, isn't all that long either. It gave me the rationale on all the things that it's doing, users, product, inventory, relating things together. If we come back over here to schema.sql, there we go. So we have the ID, integer, primary key, auto increment. We have our timestamps that I specified. Everything is in text, which is exactly how I want to see it. And down below here, this is one thing I really like. This is pretty fun. It did not finish this. That's fine. It usually will add triggers for everything. So this is the volatility of Copilot I was mentioning. Sometimes it is really thorough in this. Sometimes it's like, well, I'll just stop right here after the users table. That's fine. I don't really care for triggers anyway. But this will update the timestamps whenever I change a file. Okay, so I've accepted that, and now I'm going to save that. And now what I want to do is I'm going to press my luck. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use schema.sql, settings.json. I'm going to close. And in here, let's see, I'm going to take this out. This is called the working set. Actually, I'll just say done. There we go. The working set right here is a reference. Use this file and use this as a reference in context, but you can also do that on the fly, which is what you just saw me do with the settings.json. By adding the files up here, it will automatically get appended in there. In fact, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to add that because this is the next bit of secret sauce, which is sorry about that, there we go. If you make Copilot aware of your database schema, you now have superpowers. This thing can do all kinds of crazy stuff specific to your project. Now again, I want to reiterate that this is all local in the .vs code for the workspace. So all these settings are specific to this project. It now knows my schema, it knows my spec, it knows the code styles that I like, and has now basically become literally a co-pair programmer, what do you want to call it. So I'm going to close that off, and now I'm going to say, generate some test data, because we all need test data, for SQLite. Oh, come on. And make it obviously fake. Typing is not easy. And have some fun. Not too much fun. What's that? Okay, so just when you get off the ground, you obviously want to test out your database, see some test data, make sure that everything works, and this prompt is not necessarily important, but I'm telling it to generate some test data. I don't have to tell it what data, where, which tables, aside from products. Oh, I didn't I didn't do that. Let's see, add 10 products. That's the thing I care about most. Okay, so now I've got this in edits, and we'll run this. And so now you can see that schema.sql is in there, so it knows our database. So now if I tell it to generate test data for us, there we go, seed data. Now how did it know to put seed data inside the DB directory? Does anybody have a guess? It's in my database styles. This is where I want my directories to, this is what I want my directories to look like. Logic lives in the lib directory, data stuff lives in the DB directory. That's just the way I like it. So now what it's doing is it's talking to Claude Sonnet, and it's saying, okay, well here's the SQL file. What do you make of this? And here we get our seed data, including inventory, and I don't know what else it's doing. That's okay. This is the first time that's happened. You know, I've practiced this talk, I want to say 40 times, because we also have an AI tour that Microsoft does, and I've made versions of this demo for that too, and never once have I got back inserts, which is fine. And this is another point that I want to make in this talk, that Copilot's not supposed to get you to A to Z. It's supposed to get you from A to about R or S, right? You have to do the rest. And so let's just go down there and get rid of that. And this data is fun. Digital unicorn NFT, that's pretty cool. Quantum coffee maker, self-washing spoon. Yeah, AI rubber duck. All right, now we're talking. All right, I'll hit accept on this, and I'll do that. And we're going to close this up. So good. I've got schema, and now I have data for it. In fact, I'm just going to remove that trigger, because triggers for a data person. No, thank you. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to open up terminal here in the editor. This is one little shortcut that I like to show everybody in every talk I do. If you go term editor, right here at the very top, stop it, one more time, there we go. You can create a new terminal in the editor area, which just makes it so much easier to use for copying and pasting and doing the things you're doing. I don't mind using the terminal in the terminal window, but this just makes life easier. Okay, so now that I've got the terminal open, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up Copilot in here. And I'm going to say run, let's see, I've got to go to .db schema, because I can't remember SQLite commands at all. And db, and then, what's it called, seed data? .sql in the, dev.db SQLite database. Now you might be thinking, Rob, in the time that it took you to write that, you probably could have just, looked it up somewhere, and it's true, but you come and stand on stage and try and do this. Okay, so it knows we're in the terminal. It knows we're in the terminal right now, so it's going to give me back a command here, a shell command for using, or for running these files in SQLite. Who here thinks this is going to work? Such faith. All right, so now what I can do is I can just say, good, try, run it, boom. Hey, guess what? Did it really work though? Let's take a look. Do I have products in there? I do. So this is an extension that I have for SQLite that just shows data in here. And so now I have some test data, which is fun. Now, I want to resist the urge to say, like, look what I've done with Copilot in 10 minutes. But look what I've done with Copilot in 10 minutes. No, but seriously, this is the kind of thing I'm trying to get across here. So we are now at the third thing. Number one, Copilot is literally just the Google Stack Overflow loop. Ask it a question, it helps you out. 2, custom instructions. Custom instructions is the secret sauce for using Copilot and getting back the responses you like. 3, putting your spec and your SQL statement or your SQL schema in is just going to help you tremendously. And you might be thinking, well, we have 1,000 tables in our database. That's fine. You don't have to put all of them in there. Just whatever iteration you're working on. This is changeable. This right here, you could put all these files right here inside the .vs code. You could have a special thing called .sprint or whatever it is you're working with. Add those files in and you're good to go. This is where things get really fun and you start to see how things really speed up. So we still have the custom instruction in place for Git and doing a Git commit, adding sample data, define database schema. Yep, that looks good to me. All right, where are we now? We are not where I want to be. All right, so I've added spec, and right, we used Git. So now we're going to do data access. Okay, so now here's our project. Now what I can do is, let's see, I'm trying to think, did I forget anything? I don't think I did. I want to generate data access models. See if I can get away with this one. That's my prompt. That's it. That's all I need to remember because it has context again. And it knows the schema or the spec says we're going to use SQLize ORM and DB models directory. There we go. Ah, thank goodness. So this is again Copilot edits in VS Code, and it will generate the files for you, and it will, thankfully, run through and talk to Sonnet and then build everything out using the context you give it. And as you can see, I just said do this, and it knows all my stuff already, and it's able to generate the boilerplate. While it's doing this, I want to tell you that there are some things that Copilot's really, really good at. Boilerplate being one of them. Because there's so many samples online and documentation and things that's part of the LLM that you don't have to think about it. And if you're doing a SQLize ORM like I like to use, it is so monotonous. You have to go in there and look at a table, what's the columns again, and da-da-da-da. This just jams it out entirely. So I'm just going to say accept, and we're going to accept everything in here for now. And I want to go through this real fast. It's extending a model, which is usually what I like to see. However, this isn't completely what I want. It's close. It's close, but it's not exactly where I want it to be. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to save all. And you might be thinking, well, this is great for greenfield projects, right? When brand new project, when you're just getting off the ground. But what about the code that I have? Maybe you're a .NET person and you're using Entity Framework and you want to upgrade or something like that. That's fine. You can come in here. Since this is boilerplate and I'm trusting Copilot with it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up, let's see, where's my docs? I'm going to open up my JavaScript styles. And down below here, I need to insert snippet because it's Markdown. And inside of here, I have some snippets for working with SQLize. This is my style for SQLize. This is what I expect to see every time I use it. And I got one more in here I got to insert, which is the SQLize model. Here's a fun thing. Did you know that you can give Copilot a template? This is how I want to see the code. So it got pretty close. If you don't know SQLize, again, that's fine. What I'm doing up here is I got a class that represents the model, and then down below I'm doing the initialization. But down below, what I also like to do is I like to have what I like to call factory methods. Basically, I like to have little specific methods instead of passing back the constructor and having to do constructor work and the logic. So anyway, this is kind of what I want to set up here. Again, this is just inside my JavaScript styles. All right, this is another point in time where we have to hold our breath and see if this will work. And I'm just going to take that out, and I am going to say refactor the data access models. Just nice and terse. And if I've done this right, and the AI gods love me, right. So let's see, let's close this up so we can see this happening. Here is our index, which I didn't show you, but basically it's kind of faded out. I like to have just an index thing with everything in it. You can see it's refactoring this now to use these initialization methods. It gives you a diff whenever it changes anything. It doesn't wipe out the file. It just diffs it. So what I'm doing now is I'm having it refactor this code for me in place. And yes, it's overriding a lot of its stuff. You can see the information over here on the side that's telling you these are the changes I'm making. And let's see. Let's actually just accept everything. Oh, it's still thinking. Go back over here to product. Yeah, that's really hard to read, that diff. But what I do want to show you here is it gave me some statics as part of the class, but also down below, it's doing everything we expect it to do, which is to have that create product or create whatever model initialization instead of passing the entire class back. It has a method to do that, which is neat. All right. Does anyone have any questions while I take a breath up here? Yes?
In this case, when it's specified style, like a database style, JavaScript is very easy to understand what you meant. What if the name of the file is ambiguous, like data style? Maybe you meant SQL, maybe you meant your data structures. Will Copilot derive some conclusions, or it may ask you to specify what you meant?
So maybe give me I'll repeat the question in just a second. Give me an example of what you mean.
Like specify data style.
Uh-huh.
It could be maybe SQL, maybe
okay.
style of your data structures.
Yeah. So the question was, what if you have something a little more fine-grained? So we talked about SQL styles, database styles, and I kind of just had a little bit of a summary form of how I like to see the database done. But what if you want to do data structure styles, right? So what if you want to have something a little more specific to like data architecture? Is that kind of what you're...
Actually, it's opposite. Like it specifies the name of the file,
Yeah.
which can be treated as either database, maybe architecture style,
Yeah.
So it's not clear what you meant.
Yeah, no, okay, that's great. So the question is, let me just summarize by saying, how do you make sure that you're understood in what you're trying to do? Because right here, and that's a great question, and I meant to point this out before, what I'm doing right now is I'm kind of fire hosing all of my code styles and the SQL and all this stuff. I'm fire hosing it all to Copilot. And I think what you're getting at is, how do you know if you're not confusing it? Like, how do you know if you're not stepping on your own feet? And that's a really good point. So what I want to point out here too is I could go into settings.json really quickly and I could just comment this all out. And what I could also do is I can go into my docs and only pick the things I want. So for instance, if I'm just doing database stuff, I would pick just these two files and drag them over right here to what's called the working set. And I mentioned this just kind of in passing before, that working set is basically reference and also files to be worked on. And so this would be one way to do it. You can just kind of hijack it and say, well, don't use all these other things. Just use just these one files. And then I guess you just have to be as exact as you need to be. Does that answer your question, sort of?
Almost.
Almost.
Yeah, so what if Copilot can interpret in a different ways? Will it sort of tell you that it's a bit ambiguous?
No, it's just going to take its best guess. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. Yeah, Denny?
I have another question.
Yeah.
Is there a specific reason you are using Claude Sonnet and not other?
Yeah, that's a good question. Why am I using Claude Sonnet instead of 4.0 or some of the other models? And the answer is that Claude Sonnet's really good, that we found, really good with code. And Liam and I were talking about this before the talk, that it depends on what the LLM is trained on. And Claude Sonnet, for some reason, seems to be trained on code a lot more than 4.0. 4.0 works fine. I just find that Sonnet's particularly good. So, okay, I'll make sure I leave time for questions at the end too, or I'm going to try at least, because we're jamming along here. We're doing good. Okay, coming over here, I just love this. Every time I do it, it puts a smile on my face. I don't know, so if the commit message is too long for you, just to go in here, you can take a look at this. If it's too long, and you kind of get in trouble with your lead or whatever, you can always tweak this message to say limit your commit to 100 words or something like that. But this is pretty thorough, so we'll just say, okay, go. All right, where am I now? Reordered my windows for me. It just makes me so mad. Okay, we use a SQL file. We use SQLize. That's good. Okay. I want to come back to the point that I mentioned earlier. Copilot is really good at a few things. It's really good at boilerplate. It's really good at, if you ask it a question like, what did I ask it the other day? Oh yeah, for this right here, let's go back over here. I said, for the docs, where are you? I said, write some gherkin syntax for an e-commerce site. And this is what it gave me, which is good. So it's good for kind of just initial questions, and it's good for boilerplate stuff. But when you start talking about logic, that's where I think, that's where the debates start. And for me, what I like to see is I like to see just a start. I don't actually like to have the code written. So what I want to show you is inside here, one directive I have is, no, where did it go? Ah, here we go. All application logic will go in the lib directory. You should never generate the code for logic, only comments as to where that logic will go. So that kind of gives me a guidepost. And I could take that out if I want. I could say, take a swing at this, write up the services, if you like, which is what I'm going to do right now. So if you come down, see over here, database cells to the spec. Just want to show you the services that I talked about. Where is it? It's down at the very, very bottom. Where did it go? Up there. I'm sorry. I'm skimming right by it. So we have one service right here. That's right. So I was actually right on it. We have one service in here. It's a shopping service. It's basically a cart for now. And I gave it this spec to give it as much detail as I possibly could. So now what I can do is I can play with fire again, see if this will work. I'm going to take this out, and then I'm going to say generate the shopping service. Nice and terse. And so it's got our schema, blah, blah, blah. It's got all the files attached, which is good. And so ideally, what it's going to do is, and by the way, it does give very, very, very thorough answers. You can turn this off, or not turn it off, but you can say code only, which is a tip that my colleague showed me. If you say code only, then it will only return the code and not give you the long spiel, but I kind of like this long spiel because if something goes wrong, then you can see what it did or tried to do, and then you can counter that. All right, let's see if this is going to work. All right, so hey, look at that. Put it in the lib directory, services, and put a README in there. That's interesting. Sure, that's the first time I've seen that. It's exciting, living on the edge. All right, and there we go. Look at that. This is the fun part of programming for me, logic. I like writing logic, right? I don't like writing database models, but I like having this logic here that I can write myself, and I can add comments in here about what I expect. All these comments and all these models were generated by that gherkin stuff that I wrote before. So I think it's kind of neat. Now, what you could also do if you're being a good behavior-driven design person or whatever, is you could just pull in all your tests if you wanted to. The tests that are stubbed out waiting to go, pull in the test file and say, generate the code for this, which is actually true DDD run by Copilot. How's that? Did I say DDD? I meant BDD, which is kind of funny. Whatever, DDD something. God, I'm going to get hung for that one. All right, so let's go over here, and I'm going to go to edits, and I'm going to accept this. And we're done. So I'm not going to implement this logic. I'm not going to, but yeah, you can see good. So it's going to pull in all the goodies here. I don't know if we have a shopping cart, do we? It might hallucinate. Do we? We do have a shopping cart. It's all right, sure. I know. I should really, yeah, man plays with fire on stage, gets burned. Says what? Yeah, so where was I? We have the shopping service. Oh yeah, we can test it. I will test it. Why not? All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to generate the commit message. And it's just nice and terse, generated the code, and we're good to go. So right now, yeah, this is commented out, and really, there's no code here to test, but let's write the tests anyway. I want to come back to the point I was kind of just laughing about a second ago, that if you wanted to do strict TDD or strict behavior-driven development, whatever, you can. And what you would do is over here in wherever your tests, let's say it's in a, I'm going to just create a folder here called tests, plural? I can't remember. Yeah, you could put in all your tests, and then once you do, and you want to generate stuff, you would just drag it over to the Copilot edits. Just drag it in and have that be the context that you're doing. You probably wouldn't want that as part of your everyday settings, the custom instructions. So, okay, so now that we've done this, I want to point out there's a couple ways that we can set up testing for this. I know that what I'm about to do will rub a lot of people the wrong way. I don't want my test generated. I totally get it. I totally understand. I will say that if you have a way you like tests to be written, perhaps one assertion per test, you like to use range act asserts. For me, whenever I do JavaScript stuff, I like to have an outer describe block, an inner describe block, and each inner block should have a happy path and a sad path. I just have a way I like to do stuff. For me, if I'm specific enough, it'll actually get me pretty far along. And then I can go in and I can tweak stuff. So it's right on A to M instead of A to Z. Okay, what you can do is you can come in here at the very top, not that either. And we'll go like this. And if I hit Command-I, I'm on a Mac, Control-I on Windows, I can use the /test command. And what this will do is this will generate tests for the selected code. And I can select everything and run tests. I have found this works okay. It works okay if you're doing it for, stop it, if you're doing it for listening, that's good. Oh my gosh, how much farther can I take this? Man plays with fire on stage. All right, so I'm going to close this off. Good. What was I even talking about? Oh yeah, the tests are usually a good idea for like if you want to select one single method and do like /test right here. It'll generate tests for that, and that's fine. I want to test this whole darn thing, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the editor here. How did my database get added to the working set? That's strange. I have the shopping service as part of the working set, and I'm just going to say test this. How's that for a prompt? And, oh, you know what? Man fails. I am going to pull in that. Yeah, I'm going to pull in this because this is kind of a one-time thing. I don't need this as part of all of my references. Let's see how well this works. Test this. And let's see what happens. I'm going to look at its response, and I am going to reserve the right to be infuriated. So there we go. It should be using Jest, which is the framework that I have specified in my testing custom dealio in all scenarios in the Gherkin spec. Very good. All right. And let's make sure. Nope. All right. It didn't do it. It didn't do it because I don't have it as part of. I'm going to discard this, and it should magically take everything away, and it does, sort of. And I am going to delete that directory. I need to go into settings.json. Sorry about that. And I need to add this in here, which is fine. Actually, not that. This. Work with me, fingers. Work with me. Testing. All right, docs testing. Good. Let's try that one more time. And we are going to refresh this. And I am going to say, not that, that. Test this. Need to have that there. Stop pulling that in. Okay, try again. So now you can see I have my testing stuff here. Before it tried to generate with Chai and Mocha, which is what I usually use. I don't know if it remembers that about me. Test services, that's the first time I've seen that. And we're going to wait for a second. Who here uses Node? Anybody use Node? Mostly, are you mostly .NET Microsofty stuff? Yeah, all right. I'm just wondering how well this is going to translate to other, like if you use .NET. I mean, it's all the same kind of stuff, especially in Visual Studio, which I believe will do this too. Okay, we got lib services this. There we go. Okay, great. So there we go. This now pulled out everything that I like to see in my tests. Test happy pass first, sad pass, good. Use clear, direct language without should. I don't like the word should in tests because I'm weird, I guess. And good, all right. Wait. So we're just going to hit accept and done. Close this up, and we can take a look at our tests. Doing before all, creating the products for us. It is setting everything up. Run a test with items in stock. Boom, bang. So this is good. Removes item from cart. Okay. This won't work. And that's because everything is commented out in the logic. I could try and run this right now. In fact, I will, because why not? We got time. We have, how much time? We have just a few minutes. We could run this right now, but one thing I want to point out here, the reason I asked who does Node is what do you see that I'm missing in here? Does anybody have a guess for me? I don't have package.json. I haven't done anything with Node. I've just been sitting here generating all this code and hoping that it's going to work. Now let's find out. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop over here, and I am going to do a number of things. I am going to say, create a package. Actually, let's do this in edits. And I'm going to refresh this just for fun. Close that. There we go. Create a package.json for the project. And ideally, it should be able to see what we're working with, SQLize and Jest, EJS, Tailwind, and all those goodies, and also know the name of the project, so it should have a correct name in there. We shall see. We got Tailwind Store. We're on, hey, look at that. We have good scripts in there. We have dependencies, dev dependencies, Jest, NodeMon, Supertest, which is great. Awesome sauce. Okay. That's just another big helper. That's boilerplate, wouldn't you say? I mean, to me, it's boilerplate. So I would say, all right, I'm going to accept that. Now let's see just how wrong I was. npm I. And this is where the talk's going to grind to a halt. All right, I need you all to turn off your Wi-Fi. I'm doing my best Steve Jobs up here. That's not so bad. Okay. Git repository has too many active changes. Oh, right. Darn it. Does anybody know why that is? Yeah. Does anybody know why node modules is so huge? Okay, I'm going to say, don't show again. Thank you. I know what I'm doing. Anybody guess what I should do next? Oh, you guys are on it. I love it. Add a git ignore. Add a git ignore. Probably should have committed this before, but that's okay. Here we go. Git ignore. How good is this going to be? It's pretty good. So yep, knows we're doing node, yada yada. You've heard me say this about 1,000 times. You always want to go through here because I'm going to take this out because I do want that .vs Code directory in there. I want to override the style so everybody else on my team has access to this. Or not, if you don't want people messing around with Copilot and screwing things up, you don't have to do that. Not that Copilot would screw anything up. They're recording this talk. Sorry, boss. I didn't say that out loud. Ooh, I have to hit accept here and hit save. Build output and logs. Yeah, that's great. Okay, good. So now our commits, instead of 10,000. Really? What? Okay. You're supposed to refresh yourself to 5. There you go. Okay, so now I'm going to do this. Okay. Again, one of the fun parts. We have added. Sorry, I couldn't resist. We have added everything in here. We're going to commit, and we're good to go. Save all. What is it? The following files and save. Oh, yeah. That's fine. All right. Where are we at now? We've got our stuff. Should I try and run these tests? I'm so tempted to. I know it's going to fail. I just want to see if something happens. I don't. Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Because coding is fun. All right. npm run test. Go. Come on. Do it. Go. Oh, well. I got close. That's fine. All right, at least Jest is running. It's wired up, and now we can go in there and tweak these tests as we need to. All right, that actually wasn't part of the talk. I just wanted to see if it worked. All right, where am I at? We are now going to go over here. Does it work? Packages, run test. I'm not going to do that. Okay, it's the final part of the talk, and I'm going to try and leave some time for questions. I mentioned this is going to be open source, and if you've ever run an open source project, you know there's things that you need that go on GitHub if you use GitHub. And specifically what you're going to want is a code of conduct, you want a license, you want to make sure you have a good README, and a bunch of other things. So let's go and do all those things. And what I'm going to do is what I've been doing, go in here, and I'm going to kill everything in there. Let's see, what I'm going to do, add all the markdown files I need for a node open source project. Make me look good. Use lots of emoji. Okay. Ideally what happens is, if there's one thing I forgot to do, that's okay. Yeah, there we go. So it's going to generate a README for us, which is great because we don't have one. A contributing.md file, which is also good because you want to help people understand how to contribute. Code of conduct is really important. A lot of people kind of think, is that a little bit much, dude? But it's not, because you will get the people that give issues or argue in your issues list, and you're like, you do that again. Oh yeah, well, where's the rules? It doesn't say anywhere. So anyway, you got to make sure you have a code of conduct. Security is also good. License, of course, defaulted to MIT, which is fine. Change that as you like. And a changelog. Look at that. That's the first time I've seen that. All right, I'm just going to hit accept and done. And it's not so bad right there. If I go in here and, how's that? That's the first time I've seen that level of detail. I'm not trying to say this is perfect. This is about A to T, I would say. And you have to come in here, of course, and tweak all this stuff. Tech stack, documentation, contributing license, very good. Code of conduct, this is boilerplate. This comes back just about every time as you see it. This comes from GitHub, and so it's got lots of emoji, which makes me happy. Contributing, these are rules and developer process. You might have to come in here and tweak this a little bit more, but at least you have it. The license, absolutely need to come in here and make sure that this is correct. And so you want to make sure your name is there and the year is right. And then that this license is the text that you want to see. Good. And so it actually made a changelog too. Well, this is funny because this was my next demo. Ignore the man behind the curtain. All right. You didn't see that, right? Nobody saw that? All right. Okay. Again, I'm tempted to, I hate that when you go to these demos and people are talking about Copilot. Look what I did in 45 minutes. But look what I did in 45 minutes. I mean, come on. And all I had to do, this is everyday stuff, by the way. I'm going through this scenario of building something from scratch. But back home, just this right here could save you, I don't know how much time. right? Enabling good instructions for a Git commit so you don't have to sit there and think about it and write it out and have somebody hit you on Slack or Teams or whatever and say, could you not swear in the commit message? Oh yeah, sorry, piss off. Anyway, is that okay to say over here? I'm American. It's American, it's all right. All right. There's other words I can't say. I've been tempted to. No. Anyway, where am I? Oh yeah. So now what I'm going to do is the last file we need is a changelog. And so a changelog is always a good idea to have, right? Because then people can see what you're working on, maybe what's coming next or what you have worked on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up this, and I'm in the terminal again. I'm going to hit Command-I to do inline. A lot of people didn't know you could use Copilot from the terminal, and it's one of the neat things, I think, because I can never remember how to write out these bash scripts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say extract all commit messages to command.md. Command? Nope. That's not how you spell changelog. Changelog.md. MD, go. And so what I'm going to get back here, it's not going to actually run this for me. It is going to give me the command to run. I probably could have used the editor for this, but I don't think it has access to Git. I can't remember, but that's what I'm going to do for that. And then boom, out it comes. Here's our changelog. And let's do this. I suck. This is horrible. Oh, I can't believe it. Yeah, there we go. Who hasn't done that, right? And then you're working in your own little branch, and you're like, oh, I hope this gets rebased out. Anyway, and you just kind of push the branch, and the PR is accepted, and they're like, ping, Rob. I don't think that's a good idea. It's not very professional. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back over here. And once again, I'm going to use edits for this. I could do this inline, but I find edits just, oh yeah, whoops, I want to keep that in the working set. I find that edits works really well. So here I'm going to say, make a pretty changelog. No, actually I'm going to say format this. Format this as a changelog. Make it pretty with the emoji. What's the other one? Oh yeah, remove unprofessional language. Add lots of detail. Now you might be wondering, why did you extract all the commits first and put them in a text file? And I kind of glossed over it just a second ago, but Copilot doesn't have access to your Git, I don't believe. There's participants in there that it's a long story. You could sort of do it, and it gets confusing. This I find to be just so much easier, just to have it done with a shell script. All right, so now what we're going to do is make this changelog look nice. And I can't emphasize enough when someone calls you or pings you on Teams or whatever it is and says, could you just quickly write a changelog for the last 3 months of work? Sure. And again, we're focused on saving time, and this is everyday stuff, right? This is not supposed to be like, look at my ping pong game, but this is like stuff that will save you time and get you home early. So there's stuff in here I'll probably want to remove, like that and that. Changelog, and then take a look at that. Infrastructure, documentation, database, features, testing. So all this, we're probably going to have 001 at the very top for the version, and we're good to go. As far as our first commit, let's say publicly. We don't have any code yet, we don't have any logic, we don't have any tests, but that's where we come in, right, to pick up from here. Also notice my spicy language has been removed. And yeah. All right, we have about 10 minutes or so. Does anybody have any questions? Fire them away. Or you want to see me do something else, yell it out. Maybe. Yes, in the back.
Yes, the settings are local to this repo.
Yep.
When I work on microservices, working on a wide range of projects,
Uh-huh.
can we pull those up into the user settings just for VS
Sure.
Code to apply to everything?
Uh-huh.
And then will these override, will these add or replace the
The local workspace settings will always override whatever is in the user settings. But in your case, what I would recommend is coming down over here and going to profiles and adding a profile. Because if you have a profile, it's kind of an intermediate thing where it's not your global user, but it's specific to just this one aspect or whatever flavor of VS Code. Did you guys hear the question? I didn't repeat it. Did you all hear the question? Oh, good. So yeah, I would recommend that. But yeah, Okay, anybody else? I saw another hand. Yes.
I'm trying to get a handle on what's preview and what's not. If I'm just using the traditional Copilot command prompt and I have all these docs files and the settings.json pointing to those docs files, do I have access to all of the features that you showed, or do I need that preview edit?
Yeah, I don't know if you heard that in the back, but the question was, what here is preview? What am I showing you? Is this something that everybody can use? And that's a great question. I should have led with that. Yes, this is, what I'm using right now is standard VS Code. I'm actually over here using an account that I pay for, and this is my private account. So this is not linked to Microsoft, this is me. I didn't mention this in the beginning, but if you want to play around with Copilot, it's free right now. Free, and you get 2,000 completions, which is this ghost text right here, the gray stuff that pops up. You get 2,000 of those a month, and you get 50 chat requests. So when you saw me do about 8 or 9 today, or 10, that's all free, so you can go home and play, and you will have access to everything that I've done here. Oh, and before I forget, doop-a-doop, this is my lovely picture. I mentioned that there's going to be a QR code. If you want to have access to the snippets, then please, by all means, grab this. I have 2 kinds in there. I have the custom instruction prompts that you can add to your snippets in VS Code. I also have the markdown styling stuff just for fun, but the idea is to show you here's a template you can work with, and that's all right there. All right, any other questions? Yeah.
The specs that you were creating initially, can they be reverse engineered? Like
Mhm.
you give a code base and ask to create the
Yep.
spec of?
Yeah, I've never tried that, but I believe you should be able to. Yeah, it's a good question. Should we try it out? Because I think I can. All right, let's do this. I'm glad you asked that question. I have some colleagues that do this. They have some great demos. What I'm going to do is I'm going to comment this all out, and let's see. I know that what you can do in here, I've never done it. You can do explain the workspace. So right down over here, hopefully this will, right? You can do explain the workspace or the current context, which is a terminal. And explain, usually it should go in, explain how the code in your active editor, as explains the code. Tell you what, let's do this. I'm going to just see what happens. Why not? We're doing it live. All right, write me a set of code styles in Markdown. Oh God, I have no idea what's going to happen, as well as a spec for this project. See what happens. Copilot's pretty good at understanding there we got a code style. Okay. Now, to be clear, I removed the settings up here, so it doesn't now, it knows about the workspace, so what it's automatically going to do is it's going to scan all our stuff, and oh boy, it's going to know these documents. It's going to, to do the answer here, it's going to pull these documents in from the workspace. I probably should have deleted that to get a better answer, but it can look at your code. It can do an okay job. I don't know if I would trust it to do a full spec or a full code style, but you could probably take a file and say, build code styles based on this, and that would probably work pretty well, I would imagine. Anybody over here? Yes?
Scenario, a popular library released a new nuclear package with breaking change in public API. So your code no longer compiles.
Right.
Can you ask Copilot to fix it?
Yes. The question is, if you download a new Get package or a new anything and it breaks because they've changed something, which happens all the time, yes, you can. It might take, the question is, can you have Copilot fix it? And you can. There is a thing in here, if I go into, actually, let's see what it, I'm sorry, real fast, I'm going to come back to this. I just want to see what it gave me here. It built a spec based off what I already wrote, so this is kind of cheating, but it got pretty close. Yeah, all right, so I already covered this, so I'm going to close this out here real fast. And there I go, and doot. Okay, so if I come back over here, if I had a file with errors in it, let's go, where's the code? Inside of services. And I did something like, I don't know, let's say I had a bug in here, or like if you're using TypeScript or C#, something that's statically typed, this works really well, and something's not compiling, you can, in the code, type right up here, Command I, fix, And what it will do is it'll look at the code that is in the editor, and it'll try and fix it. And if it comes upon an API that's broken, it's really good. If you use Claude Sonnet, because that's the LLM I like for, it works fine too. But it's really good at saying, oh, well, there's no API endpoint for this. Do you want me to go look at the documentation, or do you want me to find this and that? And it will do its best to fix it. What I might suggest, actually, if you are facing that problem, is to just pop over here and type in a message to Copilot and say something like, I have the new package, this API, this is the version number, and it's breaking here. What can I do to fix this? And it'll just basically do a rapid Google search for you. And then also ask you if you want it to fix for you. Which, by the way, I meant to bring this up too. I want to show this. Have you guys seen the GitHub pull request extension? This is kind of new. The VS Code team, I believe, popped this thing out. I don't have any issues in here. But if you have a public repo like we do now, and I had some issues that were created, they'll show up right here. And you can view them right through the interface. And what you can also do is hit the little AI button next to it and say, help me solve this. And so Copilot will propose a little solution on the other side. It's pretty fun. Anyway, let's see, we got time for about one more question. Yes?
So you generated the packages of JSON file.
Yes.
But how do you know that it actually had the latest version of those packages and things like that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I glossed over that, didn't I? The question was, I generated package.json. How do I know I have the right versions in here? And I don't. And what I've seen in the past is it's usually 16 or greater than, like right here you can see greater than, something XXX. I don't know if this is the latest version. I would probably have to check on that to be sure.
Tool to, rather than generate the file, I guess, get it to actually, I guess, generate the terminal commands and pull the latest packages.
Let's find out. Let's see, I'm gonna hit done. Ensure that these are the latest packages. And I want to make sure that I pull in package.json in the working sets, and let's see if this works. All right, so take a good look at this, 16.3.3, whatever, or help to check. Hey, look at that, they weren't. So it found two. That's pretty good. Well, but do we know if these are correct?
Yeah, did it actually search or did it just query the model?
I don't know. We'd have to find out. Probably. Let's find out, actually. I'm going to hit accept. And then what I'm going to do is really quickly here, let's do this. And I'm going to say npm uninstall Stripe. And take a look at this. What are we at now? 14.5. All right. Uninstall Stripe. And then npm I Stripe. See what we get back. And yeah, so we're way off. So yeah, that's this. What are you gonna do? Man does Copilot on stage. You know, that's a great question. So yeah, I always want to check what Copilot does, for sure. All right, I think, let's see, I want to go back and make sure that I show you, oh yes, I have one last slide here. Oh, by the way, check this out. I recorded this entire talk just in case the internet went down or Copilot was being finicky. That's where all these skip slides are, in case you're wondering. I'm not a weirdo. Thank you for coming. Please rate the talk. Red's great. If you do give me red, which is fine, if you see me later, please talk to me and tell me how I can improve. It helps. These talks aren't easy, but at the same time, you got to grow as a speaker. If you liked it, green's always appreciated. If you didn't care and want to put a yellow, that's fine. It's up to you. It's kind of meaningless, but you're welcome to. Anyway, thanks so much for coming. I appreciate your time.